the strong will do as they will and the weak will suffer as they must. I've always hated that. That's always been a gut punch to what I want to be true. But nonetheless, as I think about, okay, why would it be that in the late stages of an empire, and to give people context, so Ray Dalio, who I look at as somebody who thinks about the economy a fair amount, I look at Ray Dalio as the economic equivalent of the doomsday clock that tells us how close to nuclear annihilation we might be. And Dalio's been talking about the percentage chance of civil war in the US. He's been talking about the percentage chance of a global war, another world war. And he gave the odds that we would be in a world war when he wrote his book, this is about 8 months ago, at 35% chance. Recently, literally like in the last week, he upped that to a 50% chance of a world war. I am very eager to get him back on the show because as of today, if I can believe what I have read on X, which is always a question mark, but if I can believe what I read on X recently, literally this morning, China has now taken a stance on the Israel-Palestine situation that could very much be read as a stance against the US. And so it really does become a question of, okay, in a moment like this, if we really are moving in the wrong direction, and Ray Dalio pegs us at phase 5.5 of a 6-phase cycle where phase 6 is total collapse of an empire, if we really are that far down and things are trending in the wrong direction as more forces sort of amass against this, the question becomes, how much of this is predictable? According to Ray Dalio, a lot of this is predictable. And then what do those movements look like? What is it about? Like, I'm gonna bring together my question around gender and why that we would see that throughout history, and then this potential march towards world war. For me, this is the picking apart of structure. And the reason I wanted to talk to you about it, you have said in the past, we have pulled a lot of the threads that hold the sweater together. And so when I look at gender, I think that this goes back to what you're talking about with luxury beliefs. When people are not under threat, they are able to begin to push back on a lot of the elements of structure that repress them. So structure is by its nature a limiting force. And so I think as things get better, we will always, as humans, I certainly don't exempt myself from this, we will always as humans want to push against the things that limit us. Certainly in my own life, as I have gotten more money, the thing that's been hard is to stay disciplined and focused on what works in a business, because I can paper over any poor decisions just personally. And so it really did. The first couple of years of impact theory, I was whiling pretty hard. And so we had to go, wait a second, like what actually works? Use profitability, even though we can build unprofitably, let's really look at that. And so if in success of a society, you know, it leads to the, I'll quote Adams. This is a paraphrase, I want to get very close. Can you tell me how success does not lead to luxury and how luxury can avoid leading to the effeminization of culture, basically? And how at that point, everything begins to break down. And that's what I feel like he was looking back at history, obviously, and seeing the cycle repeat, which is exactly what we're living through right now. We push against the structures. We begin to pick at those things that limit us. And the ultimate thing to pick at that limits us is the core biological construct of male and female. And I actually get why people don't want to be limited. You get people then amassing at the edges that are going to test the veracity of those beliefs in the real world.
And that is what's happening. And I don't know if you've been paying attention, but Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, the leader of Iran, and other leaders around the world, there is this phrase that's been doing the rounds from all of these people, which is a multipolar world. They keep talking about it. What is a multipolar world? The multipolar world is the opposite of the unipolar world, which is where we have been since World War II, in which America, yes, you had the standoff with the Soviet Union that ended in 1989 or 1991, depending on whether you count the Berlin Wall or the collapse of the Soviet Union, at which point America became completely hegemonic in the world. And what is happening now is Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, and others, with the support of a lot of people in the West, who are like, oh, America's evil, American imperialism, blah, blah, blah. They are now tearing down the world order that we've been living under. And this is what it looks like. Conflict here, war here, civil war there, etc. And I believe that we are living through the very beginning of what will be extraordinarily interesting times, so to speak, unfortunately. Thomas Sowell, who we both love, I mean, he talked about all of this. This is a fundamental, the conflict of vision that he described is the tension between the kind of blank slatism, the belief that anything is flexible, anything can be changed, the power of feelings, emotions, etc., over the idea that the best way to understand how we ought to live our lives is to look at the past and look how human beings have always lived their lives and what has worked and what hasn't. And when it comes to war and conflict, there's a phrase in Latin that has been known for millennia, civis pacem parabellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. If you want peace, you have to be strong. If you want peace, you have to be confident in your own values. This is why last time we spoke for 3 hours about woke culture. And I've been saying from day one, from the day that I turned down a contract from a college not to perform a comedy gig, I said from day one, what this is doing, it is undermining our confidence in our civilization. The fact that in Britain, for example, we have an endless conversation about slavery, and it's a negative conversation. It's a self-flagellating conversation, which is, of course, understandable, given that slavery was an awful thing. The slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade was an awful thing. What people don't know, and I kind of know this, A, because I haven't been guilted into not knowing it, and B, because they actually teach history in the place that I came from, is that the British Empire was the first empire in history to end slavery. So, and I talked about this in An Immigrant's Love Letter to the West, which I know you've read. It's like, imagine that 10 years from now, we all become vegan because we recognize that slaughtering animals is immoral. And then we say, well, America ended the meat trade first, and that is why they're bad. That wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. That wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. And it's... So what I see whenever these conversations pop up, and you see at the moment many protests around Western countries, around Israel and Palestine. Most people who are protesting on either side, but particularly on the pro-Palestinian side, they have no idea what's going on. They have no idea where Palestine is. They haven't read the history. They don't know anything about it. But what they do know is which side America is on. And so their support for Palestine primarily is an anti-American based idea or an anti-Western based idea. So we have educated generations of our own citizens to hate their own country, to hate their own civilization, to hate the values of their own civilization. And pulling apart at the threads of that sweater is what's going on. And you're right, one of the things that creates the core of a society, it's the interlocking of men and women. Right, in families and the reproductive process. There's no getting away from that. You need people in order to be strong economically, militarily, and in every other way. The fact that we increasingly live in societies, it's less the case here in America, but it's still the case here, where the birth rate is plummeting, as you know. Most Western countries are below replacement rate. In the UK, you're not quite there, thankfully, here in the US, but in the UK we have these Extinction Rebellion lunatics running around. Extinction Rebellion are an environmental organization that is linked with another organization called Just Stop Oil. And what these people do is they go around saying we should never use any oil again, and they glue themselves to roads to stop traffic using glue made of oil. That's how smart these people are. And one of the things that these people have indoctrinated people to believe is that having children is bad. The greatest environmental impact you can possibly make on the world is to have a child. This is a death cult. It's a religion of it's a religion of suicide, that what we are living through in the West. It's a religion that seeks to undermine every single thing that has made the West successful. We talked about it this last time, and that is what we're seeing. We're seeing a civilization that has lost confidence in itself and is therefore unable to defend or assert its values internally, let alone project them elsewhere.
If you like that clip, check out another powerful clip right here, and I'll see you there.